Ladies and gentlemen, we ask that you please take your seats at this time as the program will begin momentarily.
In this case study, I will take you through how at Aerospace Engineering at TU Delft we implemented the use of peer assessment in all project education in our bachelor program. First, let me give you some context about the bachelor program in Aerospace Engineering. Each year 400 plus students are admitted to the first year, and in total at this time some 1450 students are enrolled in the bachelor. The BSc is a 3-year program and is taught entirely in English. The curriculum is set up based on the engineering design cycle and uses project-based learning with a unifying project in each step of the design cycle. This resulted in 5 projects with a combined value of 35 ECTS spread over 3 years. Students work in diverse groups of 8 to 10 students and are supervised by teaching assistants or staff and have dedicated project facilities available to them. The final project is the capstone design project of 15 ECTS, which also serves as their BSc thesis. With such large numbers of students, teaching assistants and staff involved in these projects were confronted with challenges in assessment. Students wanted to have more input in their assessment, and lecturers wanted more information sources than just the reports and designs to base their assessment on. Other challenges that we faced were difficulties in determining who did what, and the size and the quality of the individual contribution of students to the group work, as well as difficulties in determining the contribution of individual students to the group process. Each student still needed to be awarded an individual grade. In problem-based learning, the project result, such as completed design, is less important than the learning outcomes, which means that just basing the assessment on the output will lead to a lack of constructive alignment. This is why we opted for Type 3 peer assessment, peer evaluation. In this type, the assessment has the form of evaluation by peers in the same team, i.e. fellow team members, with regards to the work carried out in the team assignment. We also wanted students to evaluate themselves on the same criteria, so that they could compare their own results with the aggregated results of their fellow group members. When looking at existing peer evaluations design, we found that they can roughly be divided into 3 subtypes. Ranking, where students rank each other on a certain criterion, with the strongest student being at the top of the list and the weakest student at the bottom. Asset division, students are given a fictitious amount of money or points to divide among team members based on their perceived contribution. And finally, rubrics. Students are given a set of criteria which are subdivided in descriptive levels, and they are asked to score their teammates accordingly. After some experimenting, we found that using rubrics worked the best in our institutional context. Students blatantly refused to rank each other, as they felt that was a very harsh and judgmental way to assess people. When we experimented with asset division, students would also avoid passing judgment by simply splitting the assets equally. Rubrics were found to be the most acceptable to students, and also staff were much happier about it. The rubrics gave lecturers good talking points to discuss points of improvement with students, as well as aiding them in motivating their assessment given to each student much better. As in the early 2000s very limited digital peer evaluation tools were on the market, we initially opted to program our own code. In line with TU Delft policy to no longer use homemade software, we then slowly moved towards outside software suppliers working with Parantion to implement our peer evaluation system in their Scorion software. After a recent European tender process, TU Delft has now switched to offering CAPME, a similar system for peer evaluation developed by Purdue University. We implemented the system of peer evaluation in all 5 BSc projects, thus allowing students to learn to use the system and to learn how to form judgment and reflect. During each project, students are asked to fill out the peer evaluation twice, halfway and at the end of the project, so the students could be given intermediate feedback and given room to show improvement. The system works in a way that students, and if desired also TAs and/or staff, select a description that most applies to each team member and/or themselves. Students can also motivate their choice by using comments either to the instructor or to the students themselves. Results are calculated and displayed both graphically and in a table, showing the students' own scores and the aggregated average team member score. As you can see, you can easily identify the underestimator, the fair self-assessor and the overconfidently self-assessors from the spider plots. It is important to realize that these are formative results and that the results are not standalone and are intended to be discussed and used as qualitative input and as supporting evidence into the final grading of a student only. We found that as there is no direct link between the grade and peer results, the system is seen as fair and informative and hence acceptable to students. There are some caveats though. Although it is a digital system, it is only as good as the person using it. Human vigilance and human intervention will always be necessary to avoid misuse, cyberbullying or misinterpretation of the system. The comments section can be very useful in detecting these issues. Also, the system and its uses must be properly explained to students prior to use, otherwise student buy-in to the system is lower, which is undesirable. By having a central system on offer, the IT infrastructure is well organized and makes it easy for staff to set up these evaluations. If this is not available, then the filling of peer groups can be a laborious task. In short, we found that using peer evaluation as peer assessment in PBL worked well, if they are carried out in a fair and inclusive way in a safe environment. When choosing your system, also look what fits in your institutional culture and don't be afraid to experiment to find out what works best for you.